This is the new iPad Air, and this is the new Magic Keyboard. But Chris, it looks like the old Magic Keyboard. Kind of, but there are some things worth talking about. For starters, it's cheaper than it ever has been, which is great because my favorite typing experience on the iPad is now more affordable. Today we're going to talk about that new row of function keys, the freshly enhanced trackpad, the newly redesigned hinge, among many other things, including a quick comparison with the iPad Pro's Magic Keyboard, which now looks very different. Very quickly though, before we get into it, if AI is frustrating you, if you're worried about your job, then check out My AI Edge. It's my new course, which will help you figure out how to leverage AI to reinvent your world and adapt to the world as AI reshapes it. Got a nice coupon to save you some money down in the description, but let's get into this Magic Keyboard. First of all, the new function keys. Seems kind of hard to imagine, but the previous version of the Magic Keyboard did not have function keys at the top. The new model, however, does. And you're probably wondering, well, how much of a difference does that actually make? Actually being able to control the brightness of the screen or control your media, play or pause, fast forward or rewind, or start dictation right off the bat, lock it down. It actually makes a bigger difference than I thought it would, because what happened was I tested out the new one and then I tried going back to the old one and I could just tell that it was missing. You go to do things like brighten the screen or whatever, and you're like, oh, actually I have to get into control center there, and it just takes you an extra step. And it's not a huge deal, but it's a nice bit of polish that makes life a little bit easier. And then there's the trackpad, which has always been great on the Magic Keyboard for the iPad Pro, but now it's bigger. Now, I'd be lying if I said I noticed the difference right away. It is bigger, but it's not so much bigger that you just are immediately like, wow, that's so much bigger. It took me a second, I kind of had to squint, and then I realized like, yeah, it is bigger in a very technical sense, but I wouldn't recommend upgrading just for the trackpad. The size of the trackpad, I should say. The Magic Keyboard trackpad, just like the actual typing experience, is the best, bar none. I've never found another keyboard case with a trackpad that outdoes the actual experience that Apple's put together here, regardless of the size. Just in terms of swiping and clicking, it's so much smoother than anything else on the market. It's not even close. So when I say that it's nice to click, I mean it's nice to click, but it doesn't have haptic feedback. That's something that the Pro version for the iPad Pro and that Magic Keyboard actually does have. So that's one area where this could be upgraded. So let's talk a little bit about the new hinge here. It looks nice and sleek now, and it's redesigned versus the last version. The last version, it kind of was, I don't know, a bit uglier. So you got that extra USB-C port there for charging. It's not gonna do anything else, can't plug a hub in or anything like that, but that is really nice to see because then it keeps this actual port open for plugging in things like hubs or any extra accessories. Now, personally, I really love the Magic Keyboard. One thing I wanna point out about it is that it doesn't have a flap like some cases do to lock your Apple Pencil down if you throw this in your backpack or you throw it into the passenger seat in the car or something. So the reason you buy a Magic Keyboard usually is because you want to use this in a more laptop-like way. You're going to be doing a lot of typing. I don't know why else you would spend the money. And so I always tell people optimize your accessories for how you're actually going to use your iPad. So if the pencil thing makes sense to you, if you're going to have an Apple Pencil, you might want to rethink it a little bit. Not having that flap there is not the end of the world. And I just want to mention today's sponsor here as well. I personally use the Apple Pencil all the time. And so I optimize for that. And I use the paper-like screen protector to get that paper-like feel. The clarity is great with the nano dots. It doesn't obscure viewing for things like watching movies or video content. And I just have to say, it's to the point where I don't like having a quote unquote naked iPad screen. I gotta have that paper-like on there because I'm so used to it. I've come to enjoy it so much that it doesn't feel right without it. So check them out. They got great support, lots of other accessories, and I like the video content that shows you how to actually get it installed. Super easy. So let's just talk a little bit about the actual typing experience here for a second. I already mentioned that it's my favorite typing experience for an iPad, and it really is. Does it matter for you? Is it worth that premium upgrade for you? Let me just try to put this into words. I've used basically every other third-party keyboard case out there, and absolutely nothing comes close. That said, if you're really trying to save some money, some of the other products, I'm not gonna get into them right now, offer an okay experience, or a pretty decent experience. If I had both in front of me, the Magic Keyboard and something else, the Magic Keyboard would waste the other ones. So it's kind of one of those things, if you're not comparing it actively, you may not mind as much. If you just start with the third-party keyboard, something like the Logitech, which I've compared many, many times over the years, is pretty good. It's okay, it's decent for me. It is not as good as the Magic Keyboard. So just keep that in mind. If you really are gonna do a lot of typing, that's like your primary thing, I would highly recommend the Magic Keyboard. I also want to point out something that might be obvious, but it's worth pointing out and mentioning even at this point where the Magic Keyboard's been around for a long time, is that it makes letting the iPad be modular possible, easy. You know, it's super easy to stick this on or to take it off. And not all keyboard cases do that. Some of them, you get the iPad embedded down in the case and it's like a chore to really peel it out, and you just know you've locked it into a certain form factor. But here, it's just like off and on is a breeze. And I like that because the iPad is a modular device and it should be that easy. Now, I did say we compare the new Magic Keyboard for the iPad Air to the Magic Keyboard for the iPad Pro. Obviously, the iPad Pro version looks different because it has some metal on top, right? It feels a little bit more premium. It also has a much larger trackpad. So if you really want a bigger trackpad, we talked about the size of the trackpad earlier, then the Pro is noticeably bigger. That said, the price is noticeably bigger too. You're gonna be paying $269 to $319 depending on the size for the Air, versus the Pro, you're gonna be looking at $299 to $349. So something in the neighborhood of like a $30 difference. So other than the looks, right, and the materials here, what are you actually getting? It's the same typing experience, both amazing, excellent, got the function keys, but you get those haptics on that bigger trackpad. So who would I recommend this new Magic Keyboard for, and who shouldn't buy it? Typing and keyboard enthusiasts, you should get it. It's the best experience in my opinion. If you're an Apple Pencil person, then you might maybe briefly reconsider, although I think probably it's fine. It probably will work out for the best, but you know yourself better and how easy you lose things. If you have an older model, only you know if that function row is really gonna matter to you. I will say you can get the new iPad Air and use the old Magic Keyboard. It should still be compatible. So if you really don't need that function row, then I wouldn't mess with upgrading. And I think that closes the book on this video. Really excellent. Yes, there's a premium to pay, but it sells well for a reason because there's just something simple and nice about it. Plus it looks good, right? If you just need more protection, that's another thing to think about. But I think for most people, like this is probably enough if you're using it for productivity, especially indoors. If you're like an outdoor sort of person, then why are you even watching this video? Just want to remind you, if it's been a while since you've connected here on the channel, this is kind of the new hobby era of daily tech. This is no longer my full-time job. It's going back to being more of a hobby like when it started, and that makes it so much more fun. I think it's better for me. I think it's better for you. But if you do want to check out that course, then it's linked up down below. In fact, inside that course, I kind of talk a little bit about the shift that I made from doing daily tech full-time to being more of a hobby again. The whole thing with AI is that it's powerful and it's coming through and totally changing society. It's catching a lot of people unprepared, but it also makes an excellent tool that you can utilize. You don't just have to get hit by a wave of disruption. You can figure out what the new opportunities are for yourself, and that's exactly what this course does. So check it out, coupon down below. Catch you in the next video. Later.